missing these answers, then you're going to have to go into Google Classroom and make sure you have it. Hey, folks, it is September the 29th, and today we are going to, first off, we're going to talk about the relationship between two things we've already discussed, supply and demand. And then after that, the class here is going to start going over that document that I posted for you in the Google Classroom. If you're a virtual student, I want you to go ahead and take your time reading over it, and you'll see that I made an assignment for you to write a summary about that. So you can go to Google Classroom and you can get the notes that we're going to discuss here in the class. And you can also read that short chapter that I made a PDF for, and then you can write your summary. So good stuff. All right. So if you recall, demand has to do with when people want something. And that, of course, affects the price of things. Supply has to do with how much of something there actually is. And of course, profit is, well, just the amount of cash or something you can make off of it. Boop. Here you go. Here's the specific definitions if you are missing them. Law of demand. As price goes up, demand goes up. As price goes down, demand goes down. So when something's more precious, people are willing to pay more for it. Law of supply. As price goes up, supply goes up. As price goes down, supply goes down. The difference between and profit is the difference between the cost to produce a good and what it's sold for. And we're talking about a positive difference. You should already have it.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be from your old notes. So, of course, the way we like to think of it is how much cash you can make off of selling something. It might take you 5 cents to make something, but you might sell it for $4. 10 cents or $4. Yeah. So then the rest is profit. And of course, we talked about a lot of other things go into it. Elasticity always has to do with the sensitivity of the thing it's defined. So elasticity of demand, how sensitive demand is to change in price. The same goes for supply. So we talked about that on both units that we had, one on supply, one on demand. Yeah, what's up?
Will we ever go on multi-level marketing?
Well, that's something I might let you investigate when we get a project going on. Because my goal for this class is I want to have 2 projects at the end of before the end of semester. But I need the Chromebook carts before I can morally give you the project. So I'm going to give you time in class to do your research, your writing, and then I want you to come up and give me a good presentation.
So I can do like a presentation on gambling.
Yeah.
Can I do a presentation over why what's it called? Communism is the best form of government? And
You can, because that's the thing. I want one to be a microeconomics question, and I want one to be macro. So that'd be a good macro one, right? So you could do a communist one.
Can I actually wait?
Yeah.
We're going to do a project?
Well, yeah, when I get the Chromebook cards, because it's going to be electronically based. Yeah. Yeah, I hope you can. There you go. But yeah, it's to be continued. It's probably going to be after Thanksgiving. I mean, I still don't have the cart. I was going to have the cart parked right here, plugged into the wall, but they still haven't brought it in yet. So anyway, let's go ahead and move along. So demand curve, if you recall, a demand curve is how we graph how demand impacts the prices. So you see price per slice, if you change the price, it changes the demand. If the price goes down, the demand goes up. People want to buy more of it. So if you have cheaper pizza, people are going to stuff their faces. But if it's precious commodity, people might only eat it say at their weddings, nice things like that. Right? Yeah, wedding pizza. I've heard of worse. See?
That sounds pretty.
Supply has remember, supply has a similar effect. If you change the amount of supply, like if there's more in supply, it's sold for less. So if you have 300 slices of pizza, you're going to sell it for less to get it off those shelves, and so on and so forth, unless it becomes more precious, like there's less of it.
Wait, that's a really bad chart. It shows
I'm
that
sorry.
at 50 cents you only sell 50. And it should be the opposite. That chart's backwards.
No,
It-
mine.
No, it's
It
first.
shows that at
this is-
$3,
this
Would you
is-
rather buy a $15 pizza or a $10 pizza?
Yeah, the bottom
Oh,
part has to do with.
$5.
Hey, Mark, the bottom part has to do with how much is in. Wait, yeah, you're right. Yeah, ignore the graph. I think the graph is wrong,
Oh,
but
the
this is
graph's
right.
off.
That's what I
Yeah.
said. It's
Yeah,
backwards.
Mark's right. The graph's off.
I thought you were talking about the-
All right. So what happens if we combine the two? Then we try to reach a point of equilibrium. So equilibrium price. When laws of
That- that
supply
was
and
wrong
demand
again.
collide.
Go back. That
Okay.
graph is wrong.
Yeah, because I see what you're saying here. So
Well,
the thing is, they don't say, so they're selling 100 at 50 cents a piece. So, and this is supposed to be the supply.
Well, it could be that the table is the incorrect part and not the graph.
No, the table was right.
Yeah, because it looks this looks wrong where the table looks fine. The graph looks off to me. But here, this is supposed to be equilibrium. If you have it $1.50 a piece, you're gonna sell 200 for the just right amount of supply. But let's just move on. All right. So, definition of equilibrium: the point at which quantity demanded and quantity supplied come together. So, you don't want to have too much supply because then you can lose on profit. If you have too little supply, then there's demand that's unfulfilled, and you're going to lose profit that way as well. So this is what all businesses are trying to make. They want that equilibrium where they're spending as little resources as possible to make the maximum amount of profit possible. And in order to understand that, you have to reach that equilibrium between supply, what you have, and demand, what people want. All right, so hopefully this next slide will make when they show the chart next to it, it'll make more sense to us. Because the problem is they didn't label what the X and Y axis were. So it's kind of confusing.
What is that?
Huh?
Ice?
Well, what?
Wouldn't it be price?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, that's price definitely, but like the bottom one, it's like, I think that's supply. Yeah, it's supply. Yeah, you might as well. Thank you. Welcome, Michael. There's the definition of equilibrium, the point at which quantity demanded and quantity supplied come together. Or you could just say when supply and demand meet, if you want to shorten it.
It levels out.
Kinda. Yeah, well, it's the same number. essentially.
It's whatever. Some companies want more.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, let's go ahead and see.
Hold on, hold on, hold on.
Whoa,
I just got here.
I know. Well, that's the dangers of going to the bathroom in the middle of class, sir. So here we go. All right, guys and gals. So we see 50 cents. So 50 cents will sell about 100, as we see here. That's the amount supplied. However, at 50 cents, the demand will be at 300. So more people want it, but there's not enough supplies to meet it. So we're not at equilibrium. If we move up and we see that, if we see that the price is $1, then the supply is still only $1.50 because you don't have the incentive to make that many. However, people want to buy more, so it's at $2.50. The point of equilibrium, though, is here at $1.50. At $1.50, you're incentivized to make 200, and the demand is 200.
Okay, So I understand the demand, but how does that supply chart work?
Well, it's the supply chart works, as we'll see later, is this is going to go into other factors that's going to relate to profit. So your amount supplied is going to rely on the amount of profit you make.
Think about it. You need to make pizza slices. What do you need?
So it's missing something. We'll see that.
Is it basically saying that like the more money that it costs, the more the suppliers want to make it?
No.
No. What they're saying here is like you're making enough profit to where you are incentivized to make more of it. So if you're selling it for $2.50, you want to sell 300 slices. You're wanting to sell more of it. You have more incentive. However, the demand's lower. People want to buy less. You want to sell more when you're selling at a high price, but people want to buy less. So here, like the profit is like negligible. It might be like 0.1 cent, right? And so you're not really incentivized to make that many. However, people would love to buy that cheap pizza. Like, yummy, 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 gimme. But you're like, I'm hardly making any money. Here's what you get.
Okay, there's a really cool example of economics in my town. There's two pizza places.
Uh-huh.
One is further away. The quality is all right, but the prices are really good. In other words, the price is really low for pizza.
Okay.
But closer to our house, in the middle of town, there's a place that has better quality pizza at a higher price, and it's closer. I don't know, but the thing is, it's at a higher price.
Sounds
Yeah,
like-
make the
It's
choice.
like $8 to $9 pizzas or $5 pizzas.
So
Nope.
what you got to think about there is how much gas are you going to spend getting to the $5 pizza.
There you
At
go.
that point, are you spending the $3 or $4 in gas to get to the $5 pizza? Is what it's $9 now, or $9? You know,
It's your decision. All right. So the opposite, of course, is disequilibrium. If the market price or quantity supplies is anywhere but at equilibrium price, which is most of the graph, the market is in a state of disequilibrium. And usually when it's in this state, if the price is too low, people will buy it up and eventually it'll reach equilibrium as well. Again, if it's too high, people are going to buy less and eventually the suppliers are going to have to figure out how to have sales and stuff like that. Interactions between buyers and sellers will always push the market back to equilibrium, like I was just giving you with the examples. It always wants to reach that state, just like in nature, right? Nature wants to be in a state of equilibrium, unless the government interferes. And that's where you start having, and we'll get into examples with that later. So you can have interference with things like with food, with energy, with a lot of things. And sometimes this is to try to keep certain businesses in operation. Sometimes this is for like matters of emergency, like times of war, or if there's like a natural disaster, you see this happen. Of course, there could also, be more like collectivist or socialized forms of economies as well. So disequilibrium usually doesn't last that long. Sometimes when a new product hits the market, you'll see disequilibrium. Like if a really good new smartphone comes out, it might kind of disrupt the market for the other phones. People might start spending more for the new one. And so the other phones are trying to have sales to try to catch up. Yeah.
You know, I see this little paradox. Two gas stations right next to each other, constantly lowering their prices, trying to beat out the other guy.
And eventually they just have to stop.
And then they stop, and then they go back up, and then they don't start over again.
I know this because I go there every weekend. But the gas stations in Ben Wheeler on 64,
Yeah.
they're the exact same price. Like, there's only two gas stations in Ben Wheeler the exact same price.
They
Oh,
often
yeah.
do that.
Aren't,
They often
there's the
do that.
one, because that's on the way to camp. There's the
Yeah,
one
On
that's,
64.
yeah. There's one that's like across from like, in there, like Dollar General.
No, they're literally across from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, you say like right behind that light.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know what you're
and then the Dollar General is further.
Yeah, the
like,
Dollar
right
General is
there.
like up there, and then there's the one right there. I know what you're talking about, yeah.
But one of the gas stations is nicer than the others.
Oh yeah. Like if they're the same, I go to the nicer one. You know,
Right.
especially.
Oh,
Whichever one has the old men sitting at drinking coffee, that's when you want to go to because it's probably the nicest.
One gas station that no other gas station can compete with, Buc-ee's.
Well, yeah, they got a lot of other things going too. You know.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, they-
Branding, they have clean bathrooms, very clean bathrooms.
Giant sodas. Yeah,
Buc-ee's is
It's like the
basically a
fresh
store
fruit
that
of
brands
gas
itself as a gas station.
it's true.
Like, you want to go to gas stations, you go to Buc-ee's.
Yeah, almost every time I go that way to Dallas, I'll stop by, right? And it's got clean bathrooms.
Isn't that usually true though, that gas stations make most of their money from the food? And like.
I don't know.
I think so. It's just like a movie theater makes most of their money from.
There's a lot of people who basically get most of their food from convenience stores. So yeah, and it's a big waste of money because you can get it cheaper elsewhere.
Really, but isn't that where they make most of their money? I think so. So it makes sense to have something like Buc-ee's where it's a gas station store.
Mhm.
So people not only want to go to it because of increased selection, but it's also where they make most of their money.
Well, also-
So if they have less of a reliance on the gas part of it, they make more profit. And then
see
they also
that.
have their own branded things. They're probably, paying like 5 cents per t-shirt and they sell them for 20
Yeah,
bucks.
It's a
people love the
stash,
Great
shirts.
idea.
It's like a stash.
There's
Yeah.
a gas station
Like buying
over in
groceries.
West Virginia that
Yeah.
was selling armored helmets.
I mean, it's
It
really
was
a great
amazing. No, not like SWAT helmet. I'm talking about like
Yeah, I've seen those
Roman helmets, stuff like that.
Right.
They're selling them in a gas station.
Okay.
Like Tennessee and Kentucky.
Well, I've seen some weird stuff get sold at a gas station. So I mean, especially truck stops.
Yeah.
Like, who the heck would buy a Roman helmet in the middle of Tennessee?
Me when I was your age. Hey, all right. So government interference. In some cases, the government steps in and controls prices. These interventions appear as price ceilings and price floors. So what we're talking about here is like price ceilings might be like with certain commodities, you may not sell it above this price. You see this often with energy and food. But you'll also see price floors where you'll be like the price for corn may not go below like $2 a pound. This is supposed to help farmers out to keep them from having to sell their corn below the cost it was to make it. So you see these interventions come in usually to help a group of people or another. So one side might be to help people get more food. The other might be to help people who produce the food or energy or other commodities. And price floors are different than they can also, you could think of it as like taxation, like some things, especially things with like sin taxes attached to them, like tobacco and alcohol, they automatically have a higher price because of what kind of thing it is and because of things, the taxes attached to them. But of course, like one traditional one, and it's been around since like early Roman times or Greek times, is price floors and price ceilings for grain. So that way people aren't price gouging during a famine and stuff like that.
What about the price walls and the price light fixtures and the
Sorry, didn't work. This is simply a tent with no walls,
well, wait, how would that work? A tent with no walls?
just poles,
Why? Okay, then what about
It's
the
a canopy.
price
price poles. You just pretend they're not there.
walls?
All right, folks, we're going to go over one more slide, and then we're going to start on the document we have. All right, so, well, no, two more. This one and the next one. So price ceiling, a maximum price that can legally be charged for a good. An example here is rent control. So a lot of cities have rent controls for, so because a lot of the times in certain parts of cities, the cost of real estate there is super high. So they put rent controls in for like price ceilings to try to incentivize people to live closer to like downtown areas. So rent control is a situation where the government sets a maximum amount that can be charged for rent in an area. So like our examples here, New York, Los Angeles, right? So,
That's why everyone wants to live in California.
so yeah, there's an argument to make for that. So like, it would be hard to be a real estate agent, there, but a lot of times that's where they also have things like subsidized rent, right?
The U-Haul Californias are out of U-Hauls.
I've heard something to that effect. Yeah, so we might be seeing a migration
Away from California.
wave in America. We'll have to see. We really want one of the best ways to find out if it's permanent is if you watch elections, say like 2 or 4 years from now, and see if you start seeing areas of states start to change in how they vote. That'd be a good way to figure out if it's permanent and stuff. So rent control situation where government sets the maximum amount. Price ceiling. So yeah, price ceiling, that's a max you can charge for a good or a service. Could be a service. All right, last one. Price floor, a minimum price set by the government that must be paid for a good or service. So like for services, we see minimum wage. Sets a minimum price that an employer can pay a worker for an hour labor. We're all familiar with that one. Another example, which I gave oddly enough, luxury or sin taxes. Items like alcohol, cigarettes, gasoline have extra taxes created a price floor. But there's also non-tax price floors that exist in some countries as well. Like I said, you can only pay you can't charge less than this. So there's some of the reasons is to make sure that the producer isn't like driven out of business, or it can also be an anti-monopoly thing so that a really large corporation can't make a commodity so low that normal people who produce that good can't compete. You could see that with farming again, like a small farmer versus industrial farming, for example. So,
Right now, there's technically only 3 big gaming consoles on the market. And then Atari trying to come back, but I don't think it's gonna be.
It's not gonna work.
It's not gonna work.
Okay.
It's not gonna work.
Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo all make their mark in the gaming industry. Like,
No one's gonna go like, oh man, Atari came back and just buy it.
I'm sorry.
Especially now.
I had friends who owned those, but I never owned one. Hey, we're going to end the lecture today, so make sure you go on to Google Classroom and complete your assignment, and we'll see you on Thursday.